The signal moves through the dead of space. It is impossibly ancient, a ghost of light and sound. It carries a message of forgotten things, of a power that shaped galaxies, and of a throne now empty. For 10,000 years it has whispered into the void. It searches for a single pattern in a sea of stars, a key to unlock a sleeping kingdom. The message is a lament and a summons, a memory of a fallen age, a promise of a future yet to be written. It weaves through nebulae and past dying suns, an echo of a voice that commanded fleets, a will that bent the fabric of reality itself. It does not shout. It does not demand. It simply is, a constant fading pulse, waiting for the one mind built to receive it, the one bloodline that could understand its call, a legacy adrift in the great, dark ocean. You live on a quiet frontier world, a planet of red sand and twin suns. Your days are simple and measured. You work the moisture collectors at dawn. You trade for supplies at the dusty outpost. You watch the suns dip below the jagged horizon. It is a life of routine, a life of predictable peace. You have never known anything else, nor have you ever wanted to. The great star-born empires are just stories to you, tales told by grizzled traders in noisy cantinas, legends of immense ships and terrible wars. They feel as distant as the myths of old gods. You have your work. You have your small home. You have a sky full of unfamiliar stars. It has always been enough. Then came the message from your doctor. A routine genetic screening, mandatory for all colonists. It showed an anomaly, a sequence of code buried deep in your DNA. It was unlike anything the local experts had ever seen. They called it a dormant fragment, a piece of an impossible puzzle. They assured you it was harmless, just a biological curiosity, a 1 in a trillion fluke. You thought nothing more of it. Just another strange fact of life on the edge of the galaxy. It was a joke to you for a week. Your friends teased you about being secretly royal. You would laugh and buy the next round of drinks. The joke faded. Life returned to normal. But the anomaly remained, a silent passenger in your blood, waiting. The signal found you on a Tuesday. It did not arrive with a flash or a bang. It was a subtle shift in the air, a feeling of being watched by unseen eyes, a low hum that seemed to vibrate in your bones. You dismissed it as fatigue. The twin suns can play tricks on the mind. But the feeling persisted. It grew stronger with each passing hour. A pressure building behind your eyes, a sense of anticipation for something you could not name. You were not the only one. Others in the settlement felt it too. A shared sense of unease settled over the red sands, a quiet dread that stole the breath. Something was coming, something vast and old. The sky itself seemed to hold its breath. Towering warships descended from the clouds. They did not burn through the atmosphere. They simply appeared, immense dark shapes against the blue sky. They moved with an unnatural silence. No roar of engines, no sonic boom, just a crushing presence that silenced the wind. Their forms were a violation of known design. All sharp angles and cold, dark metal. They hung in the air like mountain-sized daggers, poised to strike the heart of your small world. Panic erupted in the outpost. People ran for cover that did not exist. Alarms blared, a useless scream against the silent threat. You had plans this afternoon. This was not one of them. You stood frozen, staring up at the impossible fleet. Their arrival was not a greeting. It was a declaration. A deep, thrumming sound echoed from the lead ship. It was not a weapon firing. It was a scan, a wave of energy that washed over the entire settlement. It felt invasive. A cold touch that peeled back every layer of your life. It saw everything. It knew everything. It was searching for something specific. It was searching for you. You felt it in your core. The scan paused when it reached you. It focused with an unnerving intensity, a spotlight of invisible energy pinning you in place. The humming intensified. The air grew thick and heavy. You were the reason they were here. This remote, forgotten world was now a stage. And you were the unwilling star of the show. The artifact you own begins to glow. It has been your only link to a past you never knew. A small, smooth stone of a strange, dark metal. Given to you as a child, a supposed heirloom from a forgotten ancestor. It was always just a curiosity, a paperweight, a piece of junk you could never bring yourself to throw away. Now, it pulsed with a soft, internal light, a gentle blue that matched the energy from the ships above. It grew warm in your pocket, a comforting heat against the cold dread in your veins. The stone was more than a rock. It was a key. It hummed in perfect harmony with the alien vessels, a resonant frequency that connected you to the silent invaders. You pulled the stone from your pocket. Its light grew brighter, casting a pale blue glow on your hands. The humming intensified, no longer just in your bones, but audible now. A clear, pure tone that cut through the panicked noise. The giant ships overhead responded. A single beam of soft blue light lanced down from the lead vessel. It did not strike the ground. It did not vaporize anything. It illuminated a patch of barren desert a kilometer away. It was a summons, an invitation, or a trap. The stone in your hand pulsed faster. It was pulling you toward the light, a silent, insistent command. You had a choice to make. Stay and face the silent fleet, or run toward the unknown. Fear gave way to a strange sense of purpose. The stone felt like a part of you. Its call was undeniable. You ran, not away from the ships, but toward the pillar of light. The sand kicked up behind your boots. The air was thin and hard to breathe. The outpost was chaos behind you. Shouts and screams faded into the background. Your world had shrunk to this single, desperate act. Reaching that beacon of light was all that mattered. The ships remained silent. They watched your approach. Their passive observation was more terrifying than any attack. They were patient. They knew you would come. The stone was their leash, and you were firmly caught. The beam of light was not hot. It was cool to the touch. Stepping into it felt like plunging into calm water. The noise of the world vanished. The frantic beat of your own heart slowed. Inside the light, there was only silence and a profound sense of peace. The ground beneath your feet shifted. A section of the desert floor descended, revealing a hidden ramp. It led down into the darkness beneath the sand. The ramp was made of the same dark metal as the stone in your hand. It was ancient, but untouched by time. The light from the ship guided you forward. The entrance to the underground structure beckoned. This was a place that should not exist. A secret buried under your home, a tomb or a hangar. You were about to find out. You hesitated for only a moment. A look back at the life you were leaving behind. The small settlement, the red desert, the twin suns. It all seemed like a dream now. The stone in your hand gave a final, insistent pulse. Your old life was over. A new, terrifying one was just beginning. You took a deep breath, and you descended into the darkness. The ramp sealed above you, plunging you into absolute black. But the stone in your hand still glowed, a single point of blue light in the oppressive dark. It was your only guide. The air was cool and still. It smelled of ozone and dormant machinery. You were in a ship, a vessel you did not build, a relic from a forgotten age. As you moved deeper into the vessel, soft lights flickered to life. They traced pathways along the corridors. The ship was responding to your presence, to the key in your hand. The design was elegant and minimalist. No sharp edges like the warships above. Just smooth, flowing lines and soft, ambient light. It felt organic, like walking inside a living creature. There were no controls, no buttons or screens. The ship seemed to anticipate your needs. Doors slid open as you approached. Lights brightened as you entered new rooms. It was a stark contrast to the brutalist design of the fleet overhead. This ship was different. It was yours. You found the cockpit, if that is what it was. A single, comfortable chair sat before a vast viewport. The dark metal of the hull became transparent. It revealed the desert floor above you, and the menacing silhouettes of the warships still waiting. The chair seemed to call to you. As you sat, the ship came fully alive. The hum of power surged through the floor. The lights brightened to a soft, steady glow. A sense of immense power settled around you. It was not threatening. It was welcoming. The stone in your hand floated from your grasp. It settled into a depression on the armrest, fitting perfectly. The ship and the key were one. A voice echoed in the stillness. It was not a sound that entered your ears. It was a thought that bloomed directly in your mind, clear and calm. It was ancient and powerful. Yet it was also gentle. It spoke in a language you had never heard, but you understood every word perfectly. The voice was the ship, an intelligence woven into its very fabric. It had been sleeping for a long, long time, waiting for you, for the touch of the rightful heir. It said it was called the Archivist. It was a library and a guardian, a servant of your bloodline, and this was a bit much to take in before your first cup of coffee. The Archivist explained the situation with unnerving calm. The ships above belonged to the Shadow, Dominion, an empire that rose from the ashes of a great war. They had hunted your family for generations, across star systems and through the long centuries. They sought to extinguish your line forever, to erase the memory of what your ancestors had built. The signal that had crossed the galaxy was an echo, a last desperate call from a dying empire. The Dominion had followed that echo. They had followed it all the way to your remote little world, all the way to you. The ground began to shake. The Dominion was losing patience. They were beginning to drill. Massive energy beams lanced down from the warships. They superheated the sand, turning it to glass. They were trying to dig you out. The Archivist's voice remained calm. It stated that your vessel was faster and more agile. But it was not a warship. It could not fight the Dominion fleet directly. Your only hope was to run, to escape into the deep black. The familiar stars would become a terrifying unknown. The choice was simple: certain death here, or a slim chance of survival in the void. It was not much of a choice at all. You gave the silent command, a thought, a wish. The ship responded instantly. It did not blast its way out. It phased through the rock and sand, a disorienting lurch that left your stomach behind. For a moment, you were nowhere at all, a ghost passing through solid matter. Then, you were in the open sky. The red desert of your home spread out below you. The twin suns burned brightly. For a heart-stopping second, you were flying, free. Then the Dominion fleet reacted. Their massive ships turned with impossible speed. Alarms blared inside their hulls. Weapons ports opened like hungry mouths. Red energy beams tore through the sky where you had been moments before. The archivist did not wait. It pushed the ship forward, accelerating at a rate that should have torn you apart. A strange energy field protected you from the G-forces. The blue sky of your homeworld vanished in an instant. It was replaced by the cold, hard black of space. The stars were sharp and brilliant, but they were not your stars. Not anymore. The constellations you knew were gone, warped and distorted by the incredible speed of your escape. The ship moved through a channel of folded space, a corridor of swirling light and color. The universe itself seemed to bend around you. It was beautiful and terrifying. You were a castaway on an unknown ocean, with monsters lurking just behind. The archivist spoke again in your mind. It told you of your ancestors, the Elder Ones. They were not gods, but they were close. They were builders of worlds and shepherds of stars. Their empire was one of peace and knowledge. It spanned 1,000 galaxies. It was a golden age that lasted for millennia, but it was not to last. The Shadow Dominion rose from the fringes, a culture of conquest and destruction. They saw the Elder One's peace as weakness, their knowledge as a prize to be taken. A long and brutal war followed, a war that shattered galaxies and extinguished suns. Your ancestors lost. Their empire fell into ruin. The celestial throne, the heart of their power, was broken. You were the last of their line, the only one to carry the genetic key, the only one who could awaken their ancient technology, the only one who could reclaim their legacy. The archivist explained that the throne was not a chair. It was not a single object. It was a network of shattered worlds, a collection of powerful artifacts scattered across the galaxy. Each piece held a fragment of the Elder One's power. To reunite them was to restore the throne, to bring back the hope of a better way. But the Dominion sought to control that power, to use it for their own dark ambitions. They could not use the fragments themselves, but they could deny them to you, and they would hunt you to the ends of the universe to do so. You were a relic, a ghost from a forgotten age, and you were carrying the most dangerous secret in the galaxy. The archivist fell silent. It let the weight of its words sink in. You were no longer a simple moisture farmer. You were an heir to a fallen empire, a fugitive on the run from a relentless enemy. And your only companion was a talking ship with a flair for the dramatic. You looked out at the swirling vortex of hyperspace. The familiar patterns of your life were gone forever, replaced by a future of uncertainty and peril. A small, hysterical laugh escaped your lips. This was definitely going to complicate your taxes. The journey through folded space was long. The archivist used the time to teach you. It filled your mind with knowledge, the history of the galaxy, the cultures of 1,000 different species, the principles of star science and advanced technology. It was like drinking from a fire hose. But your mind absorbed it all. The dormant parts of your brain, the anomaly in your DNA, came alive. You began to understand. You began to see the galaxy not as a collection of stars, but as a complex tapestry of power and politics. You saw the delicate balance that the Dominion threatened to destroy. You saw the fear and the hope that existed in the hearts of countless beings. The archivist showed you images of the Galactic Assembly, a vast congress of star-born civilizations, a neutral ground where disputes were settled and treaties were made. It was a beacon of civilization in a dangerous galaxy, but it was also a place of deep suspicion and ancient rivalries. The Assembly was aware of the Elder Ones. They remembered the old empire with a mixture of awe and fear. They had enjoyed centuries of relative peace since its fall. Your sudden appearance would be a disruption, a catalyst for chaos. They would not welcome you with open arms. They would see you as a threat, a harbinger of another great war. The archivist informed you that the assembly was your only hope. You could not outrun the Dominion forever. You needed allies. You needed resources. You needed a place to stand and fight. The assembly was located in a sector of space heavily guarded by its own fleet. The Dominion would not risk a direct assault. It was the only safe harbor in the storm. The ship dropped out of folded space with a gentle shudder. Before you lay a sight of breathtaking majesty, a nebula of swirling gold and sapphire clouds. At its heart was a structure of impossible scale, a space station that dwarfed planets. It was a city of light and crystal, home to trillions of beings. This was the Galactic Assembly, the political heart of the known galaxy. As your small, unfamiliar ship approached, a squadron of fighters detached from the station. They were sleek, silver craft that moved with predatory grace. They surrounded your vessel, their weapons ports glowing with contained energy. A voice crackled in your mind, this time through standard communication channels. It was sharp and professional. It demanded you identify yourself and state your intentions. The voice belonged to the Assembly Security Force. They were not known for their sense of humor. The archivist responded for you. It transmitted your genetic marker, the signature of the Elder Ones. It was a declaration that would send shockwaves through the entire assembly. There was a long silence on the other end of the channel. You could almost feel the disbelief and confusion. Then the voice returned, its tone now tight with tension. It instructed you to follow the fighters. You were to be escorted to a secure docking bay. You were not a guest. You were a person of interest, or more accurately, a prisoner. The fighters led you through a maze of docking ports and traffic lanes. The sheer scale of the station was overwhelming. Ships of every imaginable shape and size moved in a complex dance. It was a vibrant, chaotic metropolis of the stars. But you saw none of its beauty. Only the cold, sterile corridor you were being funneled through. You docked in a private bay, sealed off from the main station. The airlock hissed open to reveal a contingent of armored guards. They were tall, slender beings with insectoid features. Their armor was a polished chrome that reflected your own nervous face. They carried long rifles that hummed with energy. Their leader, a being with 4 arms and piercing red eyes, stepped forward. It spoke in the common galactic tongue, a clicking, precise language. It informed you that you were to be taken before the High Council. You were not under arrest, not yet. But you were to be questioned. The guards formed a perimeter around you. There was no escape. You walked through silent, imposing halls. The station's interior was as grand as its exterior. The walls were made of a living crystal that shimmered with soft light. The air was clean and carried the faint scent of 1,000 different worlds. Beings of all forms passed by, their eyes lingering on you with open curiosity. Whispers followed you down the corridor. A human, a species thought to be confined to their own system, and one who bore the mark of the fallen empire. You were a living myth, a ghost walking among the living. The weight of their stares was heavy, a mixture of fear, reverence, and suspicion. The doors to the council chamber were immense. They swung open silently, revealing a vast amphitheater. Hundreds of figures sat in floating chairs, arranged in tiers. They represented the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. In the center, on a raised platform, sat the High Council. 5 beings of immense age and power, a being of pure energy. a silicon-based life form that resembled a moving statue. A massive furred creature with gentle eyes and a deep, rumbling voice. A delicate plant-like being that communicated through scented spores, and a machine intelligence that existed as a sphere of pure light. They were the arbiters of galactic law. Their judgment could decide the fate of entire star systems. You were led to the center of the chamber, a single, bare platform. The eyes of the entire assembly were upon you. The silence was absolute. It was more intimidating than any weapon. The being of pure energy, the council speaker, addressed you. Its voice was a chorus of harmonious chimes that echoed in your mind. It asked you to confirm your identity, to confirm that you were the last heir of the Elder Ones. The archivist prompted you. You spoke your name. Your voice felt small and weak in the vast chamber, but your words carried the weight of 1,000 generations. You confirmed your lineage. A murmur rippled through the assembled delegates. It was true. The ghost had returned. The council speaker then spoke of the great fear your return represented. The Elder One's empire, for all its wisdom, had grown arrogant. Its fall had plunged the galaxy into chaos, an age of darkness that had taken centuries to overcome. The assembly was built to prevent such a catastrophe from ever happening again. Your claim to the celestial throne was a threat to that hard-won peace. It was a spark that could reignite the old war. The Shadow Dominion would not stop hunting you, and any who aided you would become their enemy. You were a poison chalice, a promise of power wrapped in the certainty of destruction. A member of the council, the rock-like being, spoke. Its voice was like the grinding of continents. It stated that your claim was meaningless without proof. The genetic marker was not enough. You had to prove you were worthy of the name Elder One, not just by blood, but by action. You had to demonstrate a quality that went beyond mere ancestry. You had to earn their trust. The other council members agreed. They could not turn you over to the Dominion. That would violate their most sacred laws of asylum. But they could not endorse your claim either. Not without a test, a trial to measure your worth. They called it the Trial of the Void, a challenge that had not been attempted in 1,000 years, a test of courage, skill, and character. You would be required to navigate the Ghost Nebula, a treacherous region of space known for its unpredictable gravitational tides and energy storms. It was a graveyard of ships, a place where star science broke down and only instinct could guide you. No one who had entered the nebula in living memory had ever returned. It was a suicide mission, a convenient way for the assembly to solve their little problem. If you succeeded, you would have their attention, maybe even their respect. If you failed, your problem and theirs would be gone forever. You looked at the faces of the council. They were impassive. Their decision was made. This was their price for sanctuary. A fool's errand into a deadly corner of the galaxy. The archivist spoke in your mind. It told you the trial was dangerous, but not impossible. Your ship, it explained, was built for such environments. It had capabilities the assembly could not comprehend. This was a chance, not just to win their trust, but to find the first fragment of the throne. The archivist revealed a secret. The first of the shattered worlds, the first piece of your inheritance, was hidden deep inside the Ghost Nebula. The Council was unwittingly sending you exactly where you needed to go. The irony was not lost on you. Their test to prove your worth was also the first step on your quest to reclaim your power. A small smile touched your lips. Perhaps there was a bit of the trickster in your ancestors after all. You stood tall before the assembly. You looked the council speaker in its swirling energy form. You accepted their challenge. A hush fell over the chamber once more, a mixture of surprise and grudging respect. Most would have refused. Most would have begged for another way. You did not. You accepted the impossible. And in that moment, a seed of doubt was planted in the minds of those who saw you only as a threat. Perhaps there was more to this heir than just a name. The Shadow Dominion revealed its name through its actions. Long before you heard it spoken, you knew their nature. They were the ones who descended in silence. They were the ones who hunted you across the stars. Now, in the relative safety of the assembly, you learned more about them. The Dominion was not just an empire. It was a cult of entropy. They believed the universe was meant to decay, that all order must eventually collapse into chaos. They saw themselves as the agents of that final, inevitable end. They did not seek to rule. They sought to unravel, to extinguish every spark of hope and creativity, to bring about the great, silent cold. Their leader, a being known only as the Void, commanded the Dominion with absolute authority. The Void was said to be ancient, a survivor of the old war. It held a personal vendetta against your bloodline. It was not just about power. It was about revenge. The Elder ones had imprisoned the Void for its crimes. Its escape had heralded the birth of the Dominion. Now, its sole focus was the complete and utter annihilation of your lineage. It wanted to erase not just your future, but your past as well. The assembly delegates spoke of the Dominion in hushed tones. They were a shadow that fell upon every discussion, a threat that could no longer be ignored. Your arrival had forced them to confront it. You were given quarters on the station, a comfortable but secure suite of rooms. You were a guest and a prisoner at the same time. The archivist spent this time preparing you for the trial. It ran simulations of the Ghost Nebula, billions of them. It showed you the gravitational rips, the plasma storms, the fields of crystalline dust that could shred a ship's hull. The simulations were terrifyingly realistic. You failed millions of times. You were crushed, vaporized, and lost in the endless void. But with each failure, you learned. Your instincts sharpened. Your connection to the ship deepened. You were becoming a pilot, not by choice, but by necessity. During this time, you were not entirely alone. A few delegates from the assembly sought you out. They came in secret, away from the prying eyes of the council. They were from smaller civilizations, worlds that had suffered under the Dominion's creeping influence. They saw you not as a threat, but as a potential savior. The first was a Xylosian ambassador, a tall, insectoid being with multifaceted eyes. He spoke of how the Dominion had poisoned the atmosphere of his colony world. He offered you data, star charts of the nebula's outer rim. A small gesture, but a significant one. It was an act of rebellion. Another visitor was a representative of the Cygnian Veil Weavers, beings who lived in the upper atmosphere of gas giants. They communicated through intricate dances of light. The archivist translated their silent ballet. They told you of the Dominion's blockade of their trade routes. They offered you a piece of their technology, a cloaking device that could mask your ship's energy signature for short periods. It was a priceless gift, a tool that could mean the difference between life and death in the nebula. Hope, it seemed, was not entirely dead. It was just quiet, and it was looking for a leader. You learned that the Celestial Throne was not just a network of shattered worlds. It was a source of immense creation energy. The Elder ones used it to build stars, to seed life on barren planets, to weave the very fabric of space and time. It was a tool of unimaginable power, a power that could be used to create or destroy. This was why the Dominion feared it, and why the Assembly was so wary of its return. In the wrong hands, it could unmake the galaxy. The throne was not in ruin because it was broken. It was in ruin because its pieces were scattered, hidden away for safekeeping after the Great War. Its power was dormant, not destroyed. The trial was set to begin. You stood on the bridge of your small ship. The archivist hummed with quiet power around you. The hangar bay doors opened, revealing the star-dusted black of space, and in the distance, the swirling, malevolent colors of the Ghost Nebula. It looked like a bruise on the skin of the universe, beautiful and deadly. The entire assembly was watching. Their fleet maintained a perimeter, ensuring the Dominion could not interfere. At least not directly. This was your stage, your moment to prove them all wrong, or to die trying. You took a steadying breath. The fear was still there, a cold knot in your stomach. But now, it was joined by something else. Resolve. You pushed your ship forward, out of the station's protective field. You were alone in the vast emptiness. The nebula loomed before you, a wall of churning gas and lightning. The journey to its edge was silent, a final moment of peace before the chaos. The archivist spoke in your mind. It was ready. The ship was ready. The question was, were you? You thought of the moisture farm on your quiet world, of the simple life you had lost. It seemed a lifetime ago. That person was gone. In their place was someone new. Someone forged in fear and desperation. Someone who held the fate of a forgotten empire in their hands. You gave the command. The ship plunged into the Ghost Nebula. The trial had begun.